Admiral Patricia Collins straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. Today would change the course of human history. Through the viewport of the United Earth ship Endeavour, she watched the approaching Zirakai vessel. It was enormous, at least 3 times the size of the Endeavour, covered in what appeared to be weapon ports and armor plating. The ship looked like it was built for one purpose only: war. "They're hailing us again, Admiral," said Lieutenant Scott Wilson from his communications station. "Put them through," Collins replied, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a creature that reminded Collins of a praying mantis crossed with a lobster. Its exoskeleton gleamed a deep purple under the lights of its command center. 8 limbs moved with precise calculated movements. The translator had informed her that this was Hrax Voon, the lead diplomat of the Zirakai Confederation. "Your delegation will board our vessel," the alien stated, mandibles clicking between words. Collins shook her head. "That was not our agreement. Neutral ground was established as the meeting point." The alien's compound eyes seemed to narrow, though Collins knew this was likely her human brain trying to interpret alien body language. "You are not in a position to make demands," Hrax Voon replied. "Our scans show your vessel has minimal defensive capabilities. We could destroy you with a single volley." Collins smiled. "Yet you haven't." Curious. A moment of silence passed before the alien responded. "We will meet on your ship then. Prepare for our arrival." The screen went dark. Collins exhaled slowly. "That was risky," said Commander Ben Foster, her second in command. "They could have opened fire." "No," Collins replied. "They're too curious. 15 conquered species and 2 extinctions. They want to understand why we're different." The delegation team assembled in the Endeavour's conference room. Besides Collins and Foster, there was Dr. Lisa Reyes, Earth's foremost xenobiologist, and Daniel Harris, a diplomatic specialist. 4 security officers stood at the corners of the room, though their weapons were ceremonial rather than practical. If the Zirakai decided to attack, small arms would do nothing against their natural armor. "Remember," Collins told her team, "they respect strength but interpret everything through a lens of combat and dominance. Don't show fear, but don't show aggression either." The door slid open with a soft hiss. 4 Zirakai entered the room. Hrax Voon led the group, followed by what appeared to be military officers, their exoskeletons bearing marks and colors that Collins assumed denoted rank. "Welcome aboard the Endeavour," Collins said, standing tall but making no move to approach the aliens. "I am Admiral Patricia Collins, representing the United Earth government." Hrax Voon stepped forward, towering over Collins by at least 2 feet. His mandibles clicked rapidly before the translation came through. "You are an anomaly," he stated. "Your species possesses minimal natural defenses. Your planets are poorly fortified. Your fleet is numerically inferior to ours by a factor of 7. Yet you have not once engaged us in battle despite our probing of your border systems." Collins maintained eye contact with the alien's compound eyes, though it made her skin crawl. "We prefer peaceful solutions," she said simply. "Pacifism is weakness," replied Hrax Voon, his voice rendered flat by the translator. "Not pacifism," corrected Collins. "Strategy." The alien tilted his head. The gesture was so unexpectedly human that Collins almost smiled. "Explain," demanded Hrax Voon. Collins gestured to the conference table. "Please, sit with us and we can discuss this properly." The Zirakai looked at the human-designed chairs with what might have been disdain, but eventually arranged themselves around the table. Their exoskeletons clicked against the metal furniture. "In our history," Collins began, "humans have fought countless wars against each other. Unlike your species, we don't have natural armor or exceptional strength. We had to develop other advantages." "Technology," suggested one of the Zirakai officers. "Sometimes," Collins agreed. "But more importantly, psychology. Understanding opponents. Finding weaknesses. Creating advantages when none exist naturally." Hrax Voon's mandibles clicked rapidly. "You speak of deception and trickery. There is no honor in such victories." "We speak of survival," Dr. Reyes interjected. and in survival, there is only success or failure. Honor is a luxury. The aliens seemed to consider this. Collins could see their limbs twitching slightly, perhaps their version of contemplation. Our records show your ships retreated from 17 separate encounters with our border patrols, said Raxavoon. Each time we expected battle, each time you fled. Collins smiled. Did we flee? Or did we gather information? Every encounter taught us more about your weapons, your tactics, your communication patterns. The conference room grew unnaturally quiet. The Zrakai were completely still now. You've been studying us, Raxavoon said finally. Just as you've been studying us, Collins replied. The difference is we know what we're looking for. And what is that? Collins leaned forward slightly. Patterns, weaknesses, ways to end conflicts. Before they begin. The security officer to Collins's left shifted his weight almost imperceptibly. On her wrist communicator, a small light blinked 3 times. The signal from intelligence that their systems had successfully mapped the Zrakai ship's network architecture during this conversation. Your approach is unusual, Raxavoon admitted. The other species we encountered either fought immediately or surrendered. None attempted to understand us first. That's the real reason humans avoid war, Collins said. Not because we fear it, but because we have found more efficient paths to victory. Raxavoon's translator was silent for a long moment as the alien processed her words. You claim to seek peace yet speak of victory, he said finally. These concepts are contradictory. Not to humans, Collins replied. Victory doesn't require destruction. Sometimes the greatest victory is turning an enemy into an ally. We have no allies, Raxavoon stated. Only subjects and enemies. Collins nodded slowly. Perhaps that's the fundamental difference between our species. We see possibilities you don't. Is this a threat? The alien's posture stiffened. No, Collins said calmly. It's an invitation. The galaxy is vast. There are threats out there neither of us have encountered yet. Imagine what our species could accomplish together rather than in opposition. The Zrakai delegates exchanged looks, communicating in some way Collins couldn't interpret. Your proposal requires consideration, Raxavoon said finally. We will return to our vessel and discuss this concept of alliance. As the alien delegation left the conference room, Commander Foster moved closer to Collins. Do you think they're actually considering it? He whispered. Collins watched the door close behind the Zrakai. No. They're planning something aggressive. But now we have access to their communication systems and they have something new to fear. What's that? Foster asked. An enemy they don't understand, Collins replied. And for a species that's conquered through prediction and force for centuries, that's the most terrifying thing of all. Dr. Alan Howard fidgeted with his collar as he waited outside the massive Galactic Council chamber. The air felt too thin, the gravity slightly off. It was calibrated for the average physiology of all 37 species represented, which meant it was comfortable for none. Stop fidgeting, Ambassador Kelly Martinez whispered. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, her diplomatic uniform crisp despite the 12-hour journey from Earth. They're watching for weakness. Howard nodded. As Earth's foremost xenopsychologist, he understood the importance of body, language across species, but knowing and doing were different things. The fate of human expansion into the galaxy might depend on the next few hours. The Council will see the Earth representatives now, announced a tall, willowy being with skin like polished blue marble. The doors to the Council chamber swung open. The room was circular and vast, with tiered seating rising up around a central, speaking platform. Representatives from dozens of species filled the seats, their forms varying from nearly human to completely alien. Some floated in special atmospheric chambers. Others were mere projections from worlds too distant to attend physically. In the highest tier sat 5 Zrakai delegates, their exoskeletons gleaming under the chamber lights. Howard recognized Raxavoon from the mission briefings, the same diplomat who had met with Admiral Collins 3 months ago. Earth representatives, boomed a voice from the council head. a massive being with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors like an octopus. You have requested this hearing to address the Council regarding your species' approach to galactic relations. Martinez stepped forward. Thank you, Council Head Joval. We appreciate the opportunity to speak before this esteemed body. She gestured to Howard, who stepped onto the central platform. A hovering drone followed him, projecting a translation field that would convert his speech into all Council languages simultaneously. Honored representatives, Howard began, his voice steadier than he felt. I am Dr. Alan Howard, xenopsychologist, from Earth. I've been asked to explain something that seems to confuse many species we encounter. Why humans avoid direct warfare despite provocations. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Howard continued. Humans, he said, evolved as persistence hunters on a death world. The chamber erupted in clicking, hissing, and other sounds Howard recognized as disbelief. Earth was classified as a moderate gravity world with reasonable atmospheric conditions. Not in terms of environment, Howard clarified, holding up his hands. In terms of competition, Earth has more apex predators per continent than any world represented in this chamber. Our evolutionary history is not one of dominance, but of survival through adaptation and innovation. He nodded to Martinez, who activated a holographic display showing Earth's evolutionary timeline. While many of your species evolved toward physical supremacy, Howard continued, humans took a different path. We became adept at analyzing threats, predicting outcomes, and avoiding unnecessary conflict. Cowardice, hissed a Zrakai general from the upper tier. Martinez smiled. We call it intelligence. The same intelligence that allowed us to map every Zrakai fleet movement for the past 3 years without detection. The chamber went silent. Hraxvoon rose from his seat, mandibles clicking rapidly. This is a lie, he declared. Our stealth technology is unmatched. Is it? Howard asked. The holographic display shifted to show detailed flight paths of Zrakai vessels throughout human border systems. These are your patrol routes from the past 90 days. Note the predictable patterns despite your attempts at randomization. The Zrakai delegates conferred urgently among themselves. Howard continued with his presentation. Humans understand something fundamental about conflict. True victory comes not from fighting, but from making fighting unnecessary. Our history taught us this lesson through blood. The hologram showed scenes from Earth's many wars, ancient battles with primitive weapons through to modern conflicts with advanced technology. We nearly destroyed ourselves many times, Howard said quietly. Not because we were weak, but because we were too effective at warfare. When humans commit to violence, we don't stop at victory. We pursue the complete elimination of threats. A small, gelatinous being near the front raised what appeared to be a sensory appendage. If your species is so formidable in war, why not simply conquer as the Zrakai do? Your restraint seems illogical. Howard nodded. A fair question. The answer is efficiency. War is wasteful. It destroys resources, infrastructure, and potential allies. Our studies show that peaceful integration results in 74% greater economic growth and technological advancement than conquest. Ambassador Martinez stepped forward again. We're not here to threaten anyone. On the contrary, we're here to propose a different approach to galactic relations, one based on mutual benefit rather than dominance. Pretty words, said a Zrakai officer. But words don't defend borders. Howard smiled. That's where you're wrong. Words properly applied can be more effective than any weapon. He nodded to Martinez, who activated a new holographic display. This one showed a Zrakai battlecruiser firing on what appeared to be another Zrakai vessel. 3 weeks ago, Howard explained, a Zrakai patrol ship opened fire on one of your own supply vessels near the Proxima system. Why? Because they received orders that appeared to come from Zrakai High Command, identifying the supply ship as compromised by enemy forces. The Zrakai delegation was completely still now. We never sent those orders, Howard continued. We simply made your crew see what they already feared. A small empathic projection, amplifying existing paranoia about infiltration within your ranks. Impossible, Hraxavoon declared. Zrakai minds cannot be manipulated. Not directly, Howard agreed. But all sentient beings have psychological pressure points. Find them, apply the right stimulus, and behavior becomes predictable. The council. Chamber buzzed with concerned chatter. The council head raised all four arms for silence. Dr. Howard, said Zoval, are you admitting to an act of aggression against the Zrakai Confederation? Not aggression, Howard replied. Defense. The supply vessel was carrying weapons intended for an unprovoked attack on a human colony. He turned to face the Zrakai directly. We could have destroyed your ships. Instead, we showed restraint and simply redirected your aggression. That's the difference between our approaches. Ambassador Martinez stepped forward. The point of this demonstration isn't to threaten but to explain. Humans don't avoid war because we fear it. We avoid it because we've found more effective methods of achieving our goals. And what are your goals? Asked a representative from a species Howard didn't recognize. Peace, Martinez said simply. Stability. Mutual prosperity. The galaxy is vast and largely unexplored. There are enough resources for everyone if we cooperate rather than compete. Howard watched the council members' reactions. Some seemed intrigued, others skeptical. The Zrakai were still conferring among themselves, clearly disturbed by the revelations. We hope this explanation helps the council understand humanity better, Howard concluded. We extend an open invitation for dialogue with any species interested in peaceful relations. Thank you for your time. As they left the chamber, Martinez leaned close to Howard. That went better than expected, she whispered. Did you see their faces when you showed the fleet movements? Howard nodded. The real question is what they'll do with the information. Understanding that humans are dangerous in ways they didn't expect could push them toward peace or provoke them further. Either way, Martinez said, they'll think twice before underestimating us again. Howard hoped she was right. The path of humanity among the stars would depend on whether the galaxy saw them as potential allies or a threat to be eliminated. Today's presentation had gambled on the former. Only time would tell if they'd made the right choice. Captain Frank Rodriguez piloted his small diplomatic vessel through the debris field. Chunks of metal and crystalline materials floated silently in the void, reflecting the light of the nearby star. Just hours ago, this had been the Zrakai battle, fleet 12 warships strong. Now it was space junk. Not a single human weapon had been fired. Are you recording all this? Rodriguez asked, his eyes never leaving the navigation controls. Every piece, confirmed Communications Officer Olivia. Right. She adjusted the sensor array to capture more detailed scans. High Command won't believe it without evidence. They'll believe it, Rodriguez said. They just won't understand it. The mission had seemed simple enough. Observe the Zrakai fleet, movements near the Tau Ceti colony from a safe distance. Their ship, the UES Nightingale, was small and equipped with the latest stealth technology. They weren't supposed to engage, just watch and report back. Then everything had changed. Play the recording again, Rodriguez instructed the ship's AI. A holographic display appeared above the control panel. It showed the Zrakai flagship receiving what appeared to be a standard communication from their homeworld. Minutes later, the flagship had opened fire on another Zrakai vessel. The attacked ship returned fire. Within 20 minutes, the entire fleet had descended into chaos, each ship firing on the others. I still don't understand what happened, Wright said, studying the replaying scene. Their encryption protocols were supposed to be impeccable. How did we manage to send false orders that they believed came from their own leadership? We didn't, replied a voice from behind them. Lieutenant Gregory Patel entered the bridge, looking exhausted. The neural interface helmet he'd been wearing for the past 6 hours had left red marks across his forehead. As one of Earth's rare natural empaths, enhanced by technology, he was the real reason for their mission. What do you mean we didn't? Wright asked. We all saw what happened. Patel collapsed into the third seat on the bridge. The beauty of it is, we never sent any orders. We just made sure they saw what they already feared. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Explain it to Wright. She needs to understand for her report. Patel rubbed his temples. Empathic projection isn't mind control. We can't make them do anything they wouldn't already do. The Zrakai culture is built on a strict hierarchy and absolute loyalty. Betrayal is their greatest fear. So, what did you do exactly? Wright asked. All I did was amplify their existing paranoia about potential traitors in their midst, Patel explained. I focused on the fleet commander first, planting doubt about his second-in-command. Was that ship really following orders? Why had it adjusted? Course without notification? And they did the rest themselves, Wright whispered, beginning to understand. Exactly, Rodriguez said, carefully maneuvering around a particularly large piece of debris. Once the first shot was fired, their military doctrine took over. Attack anything that appears hostile. With their communications in disarray due to the initial confusion, each ship captain acted independently. Wright looked out at the floating wreckage with new understanding. So this is what Admiral Collins meant at the Galactic Council meeting. This is how humans fight. This is how we avoid fighting, Patel corrected her. If we'd engaged them directly, we might have destroyed 3 or 4 ships before being overwhelmed. We would have lost colonies, ships, lives. This way, not a single human died. And the Zrakai? Wright asked quietly. Rodriguez's face darkened. Most ejected in survival pods before their ships were destroyed. Our sensors detect approximately 800 survivors. We've already sent their coordinates to the UES Mercy for recovery. They'll still see this as an act of war, Wright pointed out. Maybe, Rodriguez conceded. But they'll also see it as confirmation of what Dr. Howard told them at the council meeting. Humans are dangerous in ways they never anticipated. A signal chimed on the communications console. Wright checked the incoming message. Speaking of the council, she said, they're requesting our presence. Apparently the Zrakai have filed a formal complaint against Earth. Rodriguez wasn't surprised. Set course for the council station, and prepare all our sensor logs for presentation. The journey to the council station took 3 days. When they arrived, the Nightingale's crew was immediately escorted to the main chamber. The council members were already seated, along with a small delegation of Zrakai officers. Praxavoon was noticeably absent. Ambassador Martinez met them outside the chamber doors. Captain, good timing. The Zrakai are demanding sanctions against Earth for what they're calling an unprovoked attack. Do they have evidence? Rodriguez asked. They have survivors' testimony about experiencing sudden paranoia and altered perceptions, Martinez replied. It's enough to raise questions. They entered the chamber together. The council head Joval recognized them immediately. Captain Rodriguez of Earth, your presence is required to address allegations from the Zrakai Confederation. A Zrakai officer stepped forward. His exoskeleton was scarred, one of his compound eyes damaged. The humans attacked our patrol fleet using forbidden mind-altering techniques, he stated. This violates multiple provisions of galactic law. Rodriguez approached the central platform. I respectfully disagree. My ship observed your fleet, yes, but we never attacked it. He activated his own holographic display, showing the Nightingale's position relative to the Zrakai fleet. As you can see, we maintained a distance of over 3 light minutes from your vessels at all times. We never launched weapons or activated targeting systems. Then explain how our crews experienced synchronized hallucinations, the Zrakai demanded. Lieutenant Patel stepped forward. If I may, Captain? Rodriguez nodded. My name is Lieutenant Gregory Patel. I am what humans call an empath. I can sense and sometimes influence emotional states in other beings. What happened to the Zrakai fleet wasn't an attack in any conventional sense. Then what was it? Asked the council head. A mirror, Patel said simply. I reflected their own fears and suspicions back at them, slightly amplified. Everything that happened afterward was their own doing. The chamber filled with murmurs and clicks as the council members discussed this revelation. This is still a form of attack, the Zrakai officer insisted. Ambassador Martinez joined Rodriguez on the platform. Is it? Let me ask you this. If your fleet was so easily turned against itself by a small nudge toward paranoia, what does that say about the stability of your command structure? The Zrakai had no immediate response. The fact is, Martinez continued, humans didn't destroy your fleet. You destroyed your own ships because of pre-existing fears and suspicions. We simply held up a mirror to your society's flaws. This is still a hostile act, the council head noted. It was a defensive one, Rodriguez countered. Our colony in Tauqueti was the target of that fleet. We have proof from their own communication logs. He played the Zrakai battle plans recovered from the debris field. The council watched in silence as the Zrakai fleet commander outlined a surprise attack on the human settlement. In light of this evidence, Joval said finally, the council will need to reconsider the complaint. Both parties are dismissed while we deliberate. Outside the chamber, Rodriguez turned to Martinez. Do you think they'll rule in our favor? It doesn't matter, she replied. The real victory is what every species in that room just learned about humans. Which is? Martinez smiled grimly. That we can win wars without fighting them. And that's far more terrifying than any weapon could ever be. The Galactic Historical Archive was the largest repository of knowledge in the known universe. Built within an asteroid in neutral space, it contained records from over 300 species spanning millions of years. Today, it hummed with unusual activity as scholars from across known space crowded into the human section. Professor Natalie Parker walked briskly through the curved hallways, her footsteps echoing on the polished stone floor. As head archivist of the human delegation, she had spent 5 years cataloging Earth's history for alien scholars. Until recently, few had shown interest. Now, following the Zrakai incident, everyone wanted to understand humans better. Professor Parker, called a voice behind her. A moment, please. Parker turned to see Zortal, a gelatinous historian from the Andromeda Galaxy. The alien's translucent body rippled with changing colors as it moved toward her. Despite having worked with Zortal for nearly a year, Parker still found it difficult to read the being's emotions. I've been studying the newly declassified Earth files you provided, Zortal said, its translator converting the chemical signals it released into English. I find myself confused. How can I help? Parker asked, checking the time. Almo had a presentation for the Galactic Historical Society in 30 minutes. You mean to tell us, Zortal's body pulsed with blue-green light, that your species nearly destroyed itself multiple times? That's correct, Parker confirmed, gesturing for the alien to walk with her toward the presentation hall. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, climate alteration. We came within minutes of extinction on several occasions. Then why are the Zrakai and others so terrified of human warfare? Zortal's colors shifted to a confused yellow. You seem to have rejected violence as a solution. Parker stopped walking. The question deserved her full attention. Because we didn't reject violence. Out of moral enlightenment, she said quietly. We rejected it out of pragmatic fear. We discovered something terrifying about ourselves. She pulled out her datapad and accessed the archive's holographic system. Above them, a 3-dimensional display appeared showing Earth's numerous wars throughout history. Look at this pattern, Parker said, pointing to the display. Early human conflicts were brutal, but limited in scope. As our technology improved, the death toll increased exponentially. In just the first half of our 20th century, nearly 100 million humans died in wars. Zortal's body rippled with shock, turning a pale white. So many of your own kind? Yes, Parker said grimly. And that's the key point. We are too good at it. Once humans commit to warfare, we don't stop at victory. We pursue absolute destruction of our enemy's capacity to ever threaten us again. The EI hologram shifted to show images from Earth's most devastating conflicts. Bombed cities, refugee camps, mushroom clouds rising over populated areas. We weaponize everything, Parker continued. Culture, economy, ideology. The reason we avoid war isn't virtue. It's because we know what we become when we fight. By now, several other alien scholars had gathered around them, drawn by the holographic display. Parker recognized representatives from at least a dozen species, including a Zrakai military historian she had met before. Is this why your Ambassador Martinez emphasized psychological tactics at the council hearing? Asked a tall, feathered being. Partly, Parker acknowledged. If we can achieve our goals without conventional warfare, we avoid triggering our most destructive tendencies. The Zrakai scholar stepped forward. Our historical records show that many species develop similar restraint after discovering planet-killing weapons. What makes humans different? Parker smiled thinly. Most species develop restraint out of fear of mutual destruction. We developed it out of fear of total victory. She adjusted the holographic display to show the aftermath of Earth's world wars. When humans win completely, we reshape the entire society of the defeated. We don't just conquer, we transform. After our Second World War, the nations that surrendered unconditionally were completely rebuilt according to the victor's vision. Their governments, economies, educational systems, all redesigned. The alien scholars whispered among themselves. The concept seemed to disturb them deeply. "Professor," said Zortal, "are you saying humans are more afraid of winning wars than losing them?" "In some ways, yes," Parker replied. "Victory reveals a side of ourselves we'd rather keep contained." The Zrakai scholar's mandibles clicked rapidly. "This explains much about your tactics against our fleet. You could have destroyed them directly, but chose a method that made us destroy ourselves." "Exactly," Parker said. "Direct conflict risks awakening our darker nature. Better to nudge you into defeating yourselves." A small, rodent-like alien raised a paw. "But what happens if someone forces humans into direct war? If avoiding conflict is no longer possible?" The question hung in the air. Parker looked around at the assembled scholars, wondering how candid she should be. The recently declassified files included simulations of full-scale human warfare against various alien civilizations. The results were uniformly grim for Earth's opponents. "Let me show you something that's never been shared outside of Earth government," Parker said finally. She accessed a secure section of her datapad and projected a new hologram. This one showed a timeline of a hypothetical war between humans and a generic spacefaring civilization. This is what our military strategists call the escalation protocol. It outlines how humans would respond to an existential threat. The timeline showed an initial conventional response, followed by increasingly extreme measures. Psychological warfare, targeted biological agents designed for specific alien physiologies, self-replicating nanite weapons, and finally something labeled simply as Omega Option. The longer a war continues, the more humanity's approach changes, Parker explained. We start fighting to win. Then we fight to ensure we can never be threatened again. Eventually, we fight to eliminate any possibility of future threat. "This is genocide," whispered one of the aliens. "This is why we avoid war," Parker corrected. "Because we know ourselves too well." The Zrakai scholar stepped closer to examine the hologram. "Your government authorized you to share this?" "Yes," Parker said. "After the incident with your fleet, Earth's leadership decided transparency was safer than secrecy. We want everyone to understand exactly why we seek peaceful solutions so persistently." The presentation hall's notification system chimed, indicating that Parker's scheduled talk would begin soon. "I need to go," she told the gathered scholars. "My presentation today is about Earth's transition from a war-focused to a diplomacy-focused species. I think you'll find it illuminating after this discussion." As the aliens dispersed, Zortal remained behind. "One last question, Professor," the gelatinous historian said. "Does this mean humans are peaceful by nature?" Parker considered the question carefully. "No," she answered honestly. "We're calculating, and we've calculated that peace benefits us more than war. The moment that equation changes, so would our approach." She turned and continued toward the presentation hall, leaving the alien scholar to ponder the implications of humanity's terrible truth. Their pursuit of peace was driven not by gentle hearts, but by the knowledge of the monsters they could become. General Eric Daniels stood on the observation deck of Callisto Station, watching the ceremony through the massive viewport. Below, in the Grand Assembly Hall, Representatives from 200 formerly warring species signed the Sol Accords, a comprehensive peace treaty brokered by humanity. In just 5 years since the Zrakai incident, Earth had somehow positioned itself as the peacemaker of the galaxy. "They're calling us the diplomats of the stars," said Vice Admiral Julie Bennett as she joined him at the viewport. Her uniform was perfectly pressed for the occasion, medals gleaming under the station lights. "Ironic, considering our history." Daniels nodded. "They signed because they're afraid of us. Because they've seen the simulations. The simulations, detailed predictive models showing the outcome if humanity ever fully committed its resources to warfare, had been accidentally leaked to the galaxy's major powers 3 years ago. The algorithms had been meticulously designed to be decipherable by alien minds, allowing them to verify the math themselves. The results were always the same: total human dominance within a single generation. Not through superior technology or numbers, but through humanity's unique talent for escalation and psychological warfare. "Is it ethical?" Bennett asked, her voice low so the alien dignitaries mingling nearby wouldn't hear. "Terrorizing the galaxy into peace? We never threatened anyone," Daniels replied, watching as the Zrakai representative signed the document below. "We simply showed them who we are, what we're capable of becoming. The peace is real. The alternative was real war, with real casualties." Bennett wasn't entirely convinced. "And what happens when someone calls our bluff? When they realize we have no desire to become the monsters we portrayed in those simulations?" "Would it be a bluff?" Daniels asked quietly. The question hung between them. Both officers were veterans of Earth's last civil conflict, 60 years earlier. They had seen firsthand how quickly humans could descend into calculated brutality when they felt threatened. "Admiral Collins is ready for you, sir," a young lieutenant said, approaching them with a respectful nod. Daniels straightened his uniform and followed the lieutenant to a private conference room. Admiral Patricia Collins, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, waited inside along with Dr. Alan Howard and several other key figures from the diplomatic corps. "General," Collins greeted him. Despite being in her 70s now, she remained sharp and commanding. "I wanted all of you here before we finish the ceremony. There's something we need to discuss." Daniels took a seat at the table. "Is there a problem with the treaty?" "No," Collins said. "The treaty is proceeding exactly as planned, perhaps too well. The Galactic Council has asked Earth to take a permanent leadership position in monitoring compliance and enforcing the accords. They want us to be the galaxy's peacekeepers," Bennett said, understanding immediately. "Precisely," Collins nodded. "They trust us because they believe we have no territorial ambitions of our own, that our only goal is stability." Dr. Howard leaned forward. "And they fear us because they believe we would be devastating in war. It's a perfect position of influence." "But it's built on a lie," Daniels pointed out. "Those simulations were never meant to be predictive models. They were psychological operations." Collins smiled thinly. "Were they? Everything in those simulations was based on actual human history. We didn't invent any of the tactics or approaches. We sanitized them," Daniels countered. "Presented them as cold strategic choices rather than the emotional, chaotic reality of human warfare. The galaxy fears what humans might become in war," Howard said thoughtfully. "They don't realize that. Humans fear it even more." Collins activated a holographic display showing the treaty's final text. "Regardless, we now have an unprecedented opportunity. Earth will effectively shape galactic law and cooperation for generations to come. Or until someone challenges us," Bennett said. "Not everyone has signed the accords. The Vrex hegemony still refuses to recognize human authority." At the mention of the Vrex, the room grew quiet. The insectoid species controlled dozens of star systems on the outer rim of the galaxy. They had been expanding aggressively, conquering less advanced civilizations and stripping their worlds of resources. "The Vrex believe our restraint is weakness," Collins acknowledged. "Their ambassadors made that clear in our last meeting. They think the simulations were bluffs." "Are they wrong?" Howard asked. Collins looked around the table. That's why I've gathered you here. The Council is voting tomorrow on sanctions against the Virex for their attacks on non-aligned worlds. They expect Earth to lead the enforcement. Sanctions won't stop the Vrex, Daniel said. Their society doesn't value trade or cultural exchange. They only understand strength. I know, Collins replied, which is why I need to know. If diplomacy fails, are we prepared to show the galaxy that our simulations weren't exaggerations? Are we willing to become what we've claimed to be? The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. For 5 years, humanity had maintained peace through the carefully cultivated perception of potential threat. Now they might have to deliver on that promise. If we go to war with the Vrex, Howard said, we have to win decisively. Anything less would undermine everything we've built. And if we win as thoroughly as the simulations predict, Bennett added, we prove ourselves to be the monsters the galaxy fears. There's another option, Daniel said suddenly. All eyes turned to him. We don't fight the Virex directly. We use what we've learned about their psychology to turn them against each other. Like the Zrakai, Collins asked. Similar approach, different execution, Daniels explained. The Vrex queens compete for status. Their hierarchy is even more rigid than the Zrakai. If we can identify the fault lines in their power structure, we can make them implode without firing a shot, Howard finished, nodding slowly. It's still manipulation, but without the bloodshed of direct conflict. And it reinforces our reputation, Collins said, understanding the strategy. The species that wins wars without fighting them. Bennett looked troubled. But it's still an act of war. We would be deliberately causing the collapse of their society. A society built on conquest and exploitation, Daniels pointed out. The civilizations they've already conquered would have a chance at freedom. Collins sat back in her chair, considering their options. In the end, this is why we avoid war. Not because we can't win, but because winning forces us to become calculators of suffering. We start measuring lives against outcomes. So what do? Howard asked. Collins looked around the table at the faces of Earth's leadership. Each person represented a different aspect of humanity's approach to the stars. Diplomacy, psychology, military strength. Together they had crafted a peace built on controlled fear. We do what humans have always done, she said finally. We find the path that achieves our goals with the least destruction. We protect the peace we've built, using whatever means necessary. She stood up, signaling that their decision was made. The Vrex believe we're bluffing. Let's show them that humans don't bluff. We simply prefer not to show our full hand until necessary. As they filed out of the room to rejoin the treaty ceremony, Daniels hung back with Howard. Do you ever wonder if we're just fooling ourselves? He asked the xenopsychologist, claiming to be peaceful while manipulating everyone around us. Howard smiled sadly. That's the real reason humans avoid war, General. Not because we're virtuous, but because we know ourselves too well. Peace isn't our nature, it's our choice. A choice we have to keep making every single day. Together they walked toward the Great Hall, where the galaxy celebrated a peace built on the foundation of humanity's controlled violence. A terrible peace, perhaps, but peace nonetheless.